In a small town living rough, times were hard and life was tough. On the porch we'd find our peace, talking about the land of the free. The stars and stripes in the sky, blue and red lines standing high. But beneath the freedom's call lies the story of us all. A conversation with the Mutts, just a whisper in our thoughts, talking about the dreams we chase in this vast American space. The roads we walk, they're cracked and dry, still we look up at the sky with hope that never dies and tears that fill our eyes. Thunderstorms and desert plains, echoes of our joys and pains. From the heartland to the coast, it's the simple things we toast. The conversation with the Mutts, just a whisper in our thoughts, talking about the dreams we chase in this vast American space. The roads we walk, they're cracked and dry, still we look up at the sky with hope that never dies and tears that fill our eyes. We're fast American space.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Conversation with the Mutts. I am your host, the Celtic Mutt.
And I am Mrs. Mutt.
And tonight we are going to discuss the man who named Swilling Mills. How many of you out in the chat have heard of Swilling Mills? I bet you have. You just don't know it. Because Swilling Mills later on had its name changed and became the sixth largest city in the United States. That name would be Phoenix, Arizona.
Hi, Mac.
Hello, Mac. How are you? Now,
bear with me, honey. I've got some technical issues
okay.
that I'm going to try to rectify.
So, hope y'all enjoyed, by the way, our theme song. That is the new theme song for A Conversation with the Mutts. I worked on it quite a bit today. I will say that, yes, it is an AI, but I made sure that there were certain aspects of what we cover here on the show in the song. So I hope you all enjoyed it. So let's get to talking about Mr. Jack Swilling. Jack Swilling was, if nothing else, quite the man. He was born on April Fool's Day, 1830. Excuse me. His full name was John William, quote unquote, Jack Swilling. He's known as, he and his second wife, Trinidad, are known as the mother and father of Phoenix because he modernized the Hohokam Canal system to bring water to the Salt River Valley, which allowed the city to develop in 1867. Swilling's vision was to create an irrigated farmland in the valley, and he formed the Salt River, water company to connect and extend the canals. Now, according to Western Magazine, which I will be quoting quite extensively, I will also say that there is quite a bit of debate about some of the facts that are quoted about Jack, because there is so little known about him that people have kind of bit and pieced things together. But to our knowledge, these are as accurate as we have been able to find. Like I said, according to Western Magazine, Jack was, again, born on April Fool's Day. Wow. In Anderson County, South Carolina. Jack and his brother, Barry, both enlisted where Jack listed himself as a musician. They both fought in the Mexican-American War. Jack himself fought in 7 of the major campaigns of the war. In the 1850s, Jack saw a chance to strike it rich and headed off for the gold fields of Arizona, leaving Georgia behind. He not only left Georgia behind, but he left his first wife. What was her name again? Rose?
No.
Mary.
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane behind, promising that when he struck it rich, he would be back. They had one child, a daughter. I did not get her name. Did you happen to get that?
Elizabeth.
A daughter by the name of Elizabeth. Behind. And again, he had left with the intention, some say, to strike it rich and make his fortune. Census records show that Jack was in New Mexico in 1860. He was set to return to his claim in Arizona when the Civil War stopped him in his tracks. He enlisted and was soon promoted to the rank of captain for the Gila Rangers.
Yeah, I think Gila Monster.
Yeah. Rangers Militia Company. Settled in they were stationed in Arizona's Fort Fillmore, which was claimed by Jefferson Davis himself, as was the entire state of Arizona as part of the Confederacy.
Did you touch on his first war?
Huh?
Did you touch on his first war?
I did not touch on, other than to say he had been in 7 major campaigns. Did you happen to find anything on his involvement in the Mexican American?
Well, I have that he served in Calhoun's Mounted Battalion.
Okay.
Around the age of 19 was when he enlisted, and he mustered out of the service in 1848.
Yes, he and Barry both did.
After the war, he stayed in the South and married Mary Jane Gray in Alabama around 1851, and they had the one daughter, Elizabeth.
Right.
Exact sources pertaining to his life for the next few years are difficult to pin down. One source stated that his brother was murdered in California and that he went west to find the men who killed him. Now, I'm getting this, by the way, folks, from oldwest.org, from an article, called 10 Fascinating Facts About Jack Swilling, the Founder of Phoenix. That's the first article I'm looking at.
Okay. Well, Jack ended up defending. I'm jumping back to the Civil War. He ended up defending the Confederacy until he refused to basically steal livestock from some locals, which some of which happened to be friends of his, and he was not going to leave them to starve. And he ended up, basically, they said he deserted. I personally commend the fact that he wasn't going to leave his friends to starve to beat the Confederacy, and it just.
Do you have a year on that?
I do not have a year on that. Do you?
No, I don't. But I'm wondering if we need to back up because we know that in 1854.
This would have been this was during the Civil War, which was between 1861 and 1865.
Okay, so by then he had already suffered his grievous head injury.
See, this is where I had to make that note that some of this is
Different
debated depending on your depending on your source, because the sources that I read said that his grievous injury, which was a fractured skull and 2 shots to his left side, happened during fighting during the Civil War, whereas as Mrs. Mutton just stated, it happened in the 18. She got
right. I have it in around 1854.
Right.
That he was involved in an incident that left him with a serious and painful head injury. Swilling stated in a published letter late in life that he was struck on the head with a heavy revolver, and the blow to his head cracked his skull. He was also, quote, shot in the left side, and the bullets were never removed from his body. After the injuries, a doctor prescribed Swilling morphine for the pain. While it aided in subsiding this discomfort, the injury still affected Swilling for the rest of his life.
It wasn't just morphine that he ended up. He ended up addicted to, and I have it here in the notes, and I will cover it. A combination of morphine and alcohol.
Well, I do say alcohol, but you came up with a specific serum.
Right. There was a serum. There was a serum that he became, shall we say, partial to, which is later in the notes.
I don't have that. Mine says that it was perhaps his injury and the resulting prescription that caused Swilling's lifelong addiction to morphine and alcohol.
See, this is where things, again, I'm going back to, this is why it's difficult to cover, Jack, because there are conflicting accounts, exactly, as to when certain things happen. She says that her sources are saying 1850. Yep. And mine are saying that they happened roughly 1861, 1862.
Now, I know something I was watching today did come up with the same doctor's name that I have here.
Okay.
And that's Dr. Eduardo Pagan. It's spelled pagan, but they pronounced it Pagan. He stated that Swilling was, quote, mean when drunk, which was often, and when he wasn't drunk, he was on morphine. Sometimes he was on both.
In the years that followed the war, Jack became, this is where I'm going to give you the name of that here in a minute, became addicted to opium and a serum called Perry Davis's vegetable painkiller, which contained morphine and alcohol. This was to help with the pain of the wounds suffered during the war. See, this is what I'm saying. We're having conflicting accounts. Jack would later write that he had suffered a fractured skull from a blow to the head from a heavy revolver, as well as a bullet in his side. Now, you say 2 bullets. Mine only said 1, so I don't know which is true.
Right.
irregardless, they weren't able to remove, even if it was just one, they weren't
able to
remove it. So he was left
Right.
with that bullet left inside him, which can be, I would imagine, extremely painful.
Yeah.
Now, as a veteran, I want to go back to one thing, which I found. When he joined the Union Army, he became a member of their postal service. And for $75 a month, he delivered the mail for the U.S. Army and was listed as a Union spy and scout. 3 months later, he was discharged. Doesn't tell me why he was discharged. It doesn't give me the year. So I'm wondering if the alcohol
Maybe
from Perry Davis's serum was affecting it. But it, so I don't know.
Well, I find it interesting that in this article, and again, this is that 10 interesting facts.
Right.
It says in the late 1850s, Swilling left his wife and child for no known reason and moved west to work as an ox train teamster.
Right.
But that first interesting fact said that he may have gone to California to go after the men that killed his brother.
Right. So again, we're going back
but
to
this is for no known reason.
Right.
We have at least a theory.
Yeah, we have at least exactly. I think it's
According to the Salt River Project History Museum, in that year, Swilling may have fought in the Kansas-Missouri state line border warfare. An alternative
we watched a movie
theory
about that. Remember?
What was that?
We watched a movie about that Kansas, Missouri.
Yeah.
It was that was what Young Guns was about.
Right. An alternate theory put forth by Swilling's descendants is that Swilling departed Alabama in 1857 after killing a man. Though he left his wife and daughter behind and traveled west, Swilling did stay in contact with his wife until after 1862, which I find a little interesting because it says in an 1861 letter to his wife, Swilling, and again, this is Mary Jane Gray.
Right, not Trinidad, but who was his second wife?
Swilling stated that he promised to write to Mary Jane every 2 weeks until they met again, which he hoped would not be very long. It seemed he had intended to return to his family by the end of 1861, though that never happened. When Swilling left town, he was part of the ox train to the El Paso Fort Yuma wagon road. About 1858, once in Arizona, he tried his hand at prospecting. He was part of an encampment of prospectors in Gila City.
Right. I said right.
Yeah.
Now we're coming at this from two different angles, folks. I'm covering some of the more obscure facts, such as a veteran of 2 wars, Jack did obtain a job as an express writer for the U.S. Postal Service.
This is going into another fact before he joined with the Confederacy.
Well, this was after he got out of. He actually served for a time as an express writer. It was while on his route between Pima and Prescott. See, I said it right.
You said it right. Congratulations.
That Jack saw the potential for growth in the Salt River Valley.
AKA the Phoenix area.
AKA the Phoenix area, yes. Or the Valley of Hell.
The Valley of the Sun. That makes it sound so much more pleasant.
But
it's the surface of the sun, let's face it.
It's the surface of the sun, yes. Now,
are you raising a toast, Mac? He says, here's to Jack.
Here's to Jack. You and Jack would get along quite well. Now, I'm gonna jump ahead here a little bit.
Well, before you do, let me go back to before he joined the Confederacy.
Okay.
And before he joined the Union.
Well, Okay, go ahead.
Around 1860, a group of Apaches apparently raided the camp, and a group of men banded together to create the Gila Rangers.
Right.
Swilling was named captain of those Rangers, and under his leadership, the group fought back against the local attacks and raids.
So he was an Indian fighter.
Yes.
Jack
Though
was a
he
heck
had
of a guy.
mustered out of the army after the Mexican-American War, once he was in Arizona, he decided to join up with the Arizona Guard.
Right.
On July 18th of 1861, at the age of 31, Swilling enlisted in the Civil War in Pino Alto, Arizona. He fought on the side of the Confederacy in Herbert's Battalion, Arizona Cavalry. Though through his service, he earned the rank of lieutenant. On February 14th of 1862, the President of the Confederate States, Jefferson Davis, claimed Arizona as a state of the Confederate States of America, and Swilling's military unit was sent to Tucson to take possession of the town for the Confederacy. According to historians, and this is what you've already were talking about, in June of 1862, Swilling refused to take part in requisition of livestock near Pinos Altos. He was ordered to explain his refusal to his superiors, but instead he deserted. In 1863, Swilling switched allegiances to the Union and was hired as an express writer for the United States Army. His duties included carrying the Army's mail. He was also apparently a spy for the Union Army and was paid a stipend of $75 a month.
Again, what I've already, yeah.
Right. After his service in the Union Army, Swilling acted as a guide for the Walker Party to
That's
the
right.
gold fields of Preston.
Mm.
And then Swilling was allegedly asked to help capture one of the most infamous Apache chiefs in Arizona.
Go for it. You cover that. I'm going to go into more of his family life here
Okay.
after your.
During his time guiding the Walker Party, Union Army General James H. Carleton supposedly asked for Swilling's help in capturing Mangus Coloradus, an Apache tribal chief. Some historians claim Swilling convinced Mangus Coloradus to surrender himself. Others state that Swilling had no involvement whatsoever.
Huh.
In 1863, Mangus Coloradus was captured and killed at Fort McLean. The soldiers claimed that they killed him because he was trying to escape.
No.
After this, Swilling had several prospecting and mining and land successes. Swilling continued prospecting himself as well and was one of the men who discovered the Rich Hill Mine. In 1864, 34-year-old Swilling married this 17-year-old, Trinidad Escalante, at what is now known as St. Augustine Cathedral in Tucson.
Yes. It was actually their second home.
After their marriage, Swilling participated in more ranching and mining ventures before settling in the Salt River Valley. In the town of Wickenburg, which I've been through on my way up to Laughlin, Nevada,
Okay.
which is right across the river from Bullhead City, Arizona, Swilling operated a stamp mill. In 1867, after securing investors, Swilling established the Swilling Irrigation and Canal Company. Swilling hired Mexican laborers to construct the irrigation canals. And that's where he goes back to the irrigation canals that were put in by the Hohokam tribe.
So you said that, and that was 18 what?
18, he put in 1867, after securing the investors, he established the Swilling Irrigation and Canal Company.
And I have different. Again, we're going back to conflicting stories. Mine says that he established the Swilling Irrigation Company in 1864. But I'll get into that in a minute. Now, according, you just mentioned Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, according to Trinidad and Jack's last living daughter, Harriet Swift, Trinidad saw Jack the same day that she, her mother, and brothers and sisters all arrived in Tucson after the death of their father, who had already planned on bringing them all to Tucson anyway. The mother decided to go ahead and fulfill her now deceased husband's wishes in Tucson in 1864. She saw a group of men ride up close to her wagon. They stared at her so intently that it embarrassed the young Trinidad. Harriet Swift goes on to say that Jack told one of the men he was going to marry that girl. That's a direct quote, talking about which he later did the same year he did do. They married in Tucson in the beautiful St. Augustine's Chapel, referring to what is now called the St. Augustine's Cathedral. At the time of the wedding in 1864 was a small 2-room house. They came to the valley of what is now called Phoenix. Jack was 34 and Trinidad was somewhere between 15 and 17. Now, the reason I say that is her age was disputed because there was never any documentation presented to prove how old she was.
Well, they used to document male children,
right,
but never female.
Right.
It wasn't until relatively recent history that they documented female children.
One of the stipulations. Now this is just, again, these are just little tidbits of stuff that I found interesting. One of the stipulations of Trinidad and Jack's marriage, according to her mother, was that Jack had to convert to Catholicism. I can imagine that he was probably not well versed in Catholicism at that time. He did grow up in South Carolina. That's heavily Baptist even back then. Jack started, see, this is where we're going to have conflicting information. Jack started the Swilling, and by the way, folks, let me back up. I'm quoting some information that I got from ArizonaCentral.com as my point of reference. So you can tell that even according to, the internet can't all get it right.
Well, even they have conflicting sources.
Right. Jack started the Swilling Irrigation and Canal Company in Wickenburg shortly after he and Trinidad arrived in Phoenix. With the help of the Mexicans already living in the area, he built the irrigation system that brought water to the valley, thus allowing crops to be grown there, which in turn brought other opportunities to the valley. According to the City of Phoenix's website, the city was officially recognized May 4th, 1868.
Right, and I have this was the canal system. There was an ancient canal system that was already in existence when Swilling arrived in the area. The canals were originally developed by the Hohokam people. Swilling and his laborers modernized the structure that was already presented. With the success of the canals, water was flowing into the area, and the town of Phoenix was originally recognized, like you said, on May 4th of 1868.
Right.
On June 15th of 1868, a post office was established in the new town of Phoenix. and Swilling was named the first postmaster.
Here's to Jack. You tell. Oh, Mac must have.
Like the song.
He must have. He must have fallen off the. He fell out of the.
Oh yeah, it's just me apparently in the
Yeah,
now.
that's okay. Other people will see it. I guarantee it.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, Jack was quite the character. I mean, in his time in Arizona,
He was a very intelligent man.
he very much so. He had to have been in order to, build irrigation systems. But he also served as a justice of the peace, the postmaster.
Mm-hmm.
He never ran for sheriff, although they say that might have been something to do. That the fact that a friend of his was running might have had something to do with why he was eventually basically run out of town. And the name of Phoenix, or excuse me, Swilling's Mills
Was changed
to Phoenix. Yes. Some say that was by one of his very best friends, was the suggestion, because they said the city would rise from the ashes like a phoenix. And shortly thereafter, it did start to grow.
Now but the next thing I got here is that Swilling and his wife are known as the founders of Phoenix,
Yep.
which I know you've got.
Yep.
According to an article in the Republic, due to the immense influence on the establishment of the town, Trinidad and Jack are often called the mother and father of Phoenix. The couple also involved themselves in, quote, bridging the gap between Anglos and Mexicanos through religion. At the time, there wasn't a church in Phoenix, and the first mass was celebrated at the Swilling home.
Yes.
The Swilling home was an adobe structure called Dos Casas. Dos Casas.
Two houses.
Right. Together, the couple had 7 children. 2 of the children passed away in early childhood. I think we had heard in infancy.
Yes.
The couple also cared for 2 orphaned Apache children.
Yep.
Did you get names on the Apache children?
I did not. I didn't find any names on the Apache children, oddly enough. The only name that I found on any of the children was Harriet Swift. Jack didn't run into any real trouble with the law until roughly 1878.
Oh, no, I do have before that. He served as Justice of the Peace and President of the Democratic Convention in Maricopa County in the early 1870s. Around 1873, the Swillings relocated to Black Canyon, where Swilling established another mining company. Swilling's earlier injuries caused increasing pain for him over the years.
Yep.
His substance abuse issues were at an all-time high, and he began selling off many of his properties and mining interests in the mid-1870s. Welcome back, Mac.
Hey, Mac.
Oh, it's been here the whole time. Feel like I owe y'all money for private school lessons.
Hey, buddy. You know what? You don't listen. Just hit the like button for me. I'll consider you paid in full.
And spread the word.
Yeah, definitely spread the word.
Share us.
Yeah, share it out. By all means, hit the share button and send it to, Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever you got. But yeah, Jack, I almost feel sorry for him, because it wasn't like he didn't intentionally wake up one day and go, you know what, I think I want to become an alcoholic and a drug addict.
No.
And he was
like so many escaping his own pain. He was self-medicated.
Yeah. And
part of it was prescription medication.
Yeah. And back then they didn't monitor prescriptions like they do now. You could go to, some opiates were sold over the counter. You could just go into the store and pick them up. Now, did you get anything on the Wells Fargo?
That's what I got next.
Okay, you go into that, and then I'm gonna
robbery.
Yep, go, and then I'm gonna go into 1878.
That's where I'm at. In April of 1878, Swilling traveled to exhume the remains of a friend, Jacob Snively,
Okay,
for Christian burial.
Yeah, he was with two other friends
Right.
who had planned the trip, and those friends were George Monroe and Andrew Kirby. And they had taken him
Thank
on
you,
the
Matt.
trip to the mining settlement of Gillette so they could bury the remains of a dear friend, Colonel Jacob. Was it Snively?
I believe so.
He had been
Snively.
hastily buried after perishing in an Apache attack in 1871, 8 years earlier. It was during this same time that a Wells Fargo stagecoach had been robbed.
From what I understand, I don't have it in this particular article. Maybe it's in one of my other articles. Maybe it's somewhere else that I heard. But it was during this trip that this trip was encouraged as part of to use our modern word,
Intervention.
detox.
Yes.
Intervention.
Yes.
To get him to dry out.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. They were trying to get him to dry out. Now, the way I'm reading this, that the Wells Fargo, and I will go into why in a few minutes, the Wells Fargo robbery was in 1871. Their trip wasn't until 1878.
I don't have that information. All I have is that during this trip, he was accused of robbing a stagecoach and imprisoned in Yuma.
And that was his own fault. I'm going to cover that in a minute. It was during this same time that the attack in wait a minute, I got ahead of myself. A Wells Fargo coach had been robbed. Jack, in 1878, would drunkenly joke he and his two friends had committed the crime. He and his two friends were taken into custody and placed in prison in Prescott. They would be transferred to Yuma State Prison, where Jack would die on August 12, 1878, from sudden detoxification shock.
Now, I have that from prison, Swilling wrote a heartfelt plea expressing his innocence. In his letter, he discussed his dependency issues, his mistreatment of his wife while he was under the influence, and his attempts at ridding himself of his addictions.
Right.
Unfortunately, he never saw his family again and died in prison while awaiting trial in Yuma on August 13th of 1878.
See, we're even a day off there because it says he died August 12th in the report that I read. So you never, from detoxification shock. I guess that would be a shock to your system to automatic, have alcohol and
off the opiates.
Yeah.
It says at the end of the 1878 publication of Swilling's letter, a newspaper reporter stated, quote, Jack Swilling's hospitality was fully equal to his own representation of it. It was cheerfully dispensed to high and low, rich and poor, and when not crazed by liquor, he was a kind and loving husband and parent, end quote.
Yep. Now, after he passed, he was buried at the rear of the courthouse in Yuma. His body was later exhumed in 1903 and reburied in Yuma, where he now lies in an unmarked grave.
Now, there's stories that have circulated over time about his tough nature and his mistreatment of people while under the influence.
Well, yeah,
Right. Some have stated he killed as many as 12 men and scalped at least one person. He had his hands in many different kinds of businesses, from stamp mills to mining, irrigation, and gambling houses. Due to his early injury, Swilling struggled with addiction for the majority of his life. His friends and family both suffered from his wrath and were fully supported by his giving nature. Unfortunately, he was never able to overcome his addictions during his lifetime.
No, sadly.
Today, Swilling is remembered as a pioneer and entrepreneur, the father and founder of Phoenix, who helped shape the land that would become known
And Trinidad even referred to him
as
as
the
a
state of Arizona.
yeah. Trinidad would often refer to him as a frontiersman and an entrepreneur. Those were two words that she was frequently fond of saying about her husband, who she did love very dearly, according to all records that I saw. And that's really about all I've got on Mr. Swilling.
I can take a look right quick over the other two articles to see.
Yep, poor
I'm
Jack.
sure a lot.
Agreed, buddy. Agreed. Poor Jack. But again, they didn't have some of the. I mean, we've still got addiction issues in modern day. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, it's. I can only imagine what it was like back then. Where is my. There it is.
Now, just to give you a little bit of background on the Hohokams
Yes.
that developed that original irrigation system, they were there possibly as early as 300 BC and remained until about 1480. They developed the elaborate system of irrigation canals extending far from the banks of the Salt River. Their culture collapsed in the 15th century for reasons that are not entirely known.
Huh. I didn't even look up anything about the Hohokams. Maybe I should have.
This, and by the way, this is from Britannica.com.
Ah.
And this is just an article about Phoenix in general.
Right.
And this particular section is looking at the culture.
Right.
And then now this is from a town to a city.
Now, I have to wonder if the fact that he was
really
justice of the peace, which essentially made him a judge back then, that was why he was never really tried for any of these alleged 12 people he killed, one of which supposedly he scalped.
Those that could have been partially during his time served in the military.
Well, it's possible too. That's possible too. But even then, I think they would have either imprisoned him, and unless he was covering it up as an act of war, or they would have executed him. But I don't know. It just leaves me with some questions. That's all. I just thought when we were listening to that show the other day, when they started talking about Jack, I found him to be a rather interesting fellow. The one thing that I didn't find, which surprised me, was he didn't really have any ties to the Superstition Mountains, which was the show we were watching that initially led us to.
I think he did some mining
in the Superstitions. Okay.
Because he was a miner.
Yeah. I don't know. I just kind of found that interesting that I didn't find anything about him in the Superstitions. Did he have anything to do with the Lost Dutchman?
I don't believe so.
I don't think he did either. I know that somebody asked me today if his time in the superstitions might have cursed him, and that was why he became known as Tragic Jack. And I told him, not to my knowledge, no. But I just, it is interesting to think back to that show that we watched.
My question was, did Jack Swilling do any mining in the Superstition Mountain?
Yeah.
And everything's coming up with the Lost Dutchman mine. Jack Swilling Wikipedia.
We don't trust Wikipedia.
No. And then I am getting archives. Charlotte Hall Museum,
Okay.
and that's talking about Jack Swilling and Joseph Walker's Arizona adventure.
Well, I know that Walker had something to do with the Lost Dutchman, because I remember that name being mentioned as well.
Which they're saying, it says Lost Dutchman's Mining Association, owner of the ghost town of Staunton below Rich Hill, scoured that area for traces of precious metal. Rich Hill was not the true location of Legendary Dutch Hill's Dutchman's
Lost
mine.
Dutchman's mine. No. There's a lot said about the Lost Dutch, or the superstitions and the Lost Dutchman. More than I could wrap my head around. So, what would you like to cover next week? I know we had several other. Did you want to do the Wisconsin?
Let me look to see if it will.
Huh?
The only two show ideas left on our list right now are the Wisconsin and the Virginia.
Do you want to do the Wisconsin for next week?
That would be fine.
I think that we will. Then we will discuss the Wisconsin, which is actually anchored here in Norfolk.
So it's kind of hitting two birds with one stone, folks.
And you never know. We might actually, maybe make a trip.
It's gonna be hot.
Yeah, that's why I emphasized maybe.
The faceless roommate's not gonna have a day off for us.
Plus,
Take forever in the day to get down there.
Huh?
Take forever in the day to get down there.
Would take that long.
It'll just feel like it.
It'll just feel like it. Mac with his poor Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to feel for him now. You do.
Yeah. I mean, the dude, he meant well. I'm curious as to what.
Well, I'm curious as to what sparked the incident that brought the pistol.
I was getting ready to say the exact.
Left
Get out of my head. Get out of my head, woman. Get out of my head. I know we're married, but get out of my head. I was getting ready to. Yeah, I know. I was getting ready to say the same thing. I'm curious as to what triggered. I wasn't going to use the word spark, but triggered that incident.
Triggered was too spot on. It was a gun to the head.
Yeah, I know, but that's why I was going to do it.
It was a gun bashing him in the head and a bullet in the side.
Yeah.
Trigger was too spot on of a word.
Yeah.
Too cliche.
Oh, maybe for you. Maybe for you. I just, but there has to have been, and it's never really discussed as to what the cause was. Why this individual felt the need to bash him in the head, fracturing his skull,
and shoot him in the side. Assuming it was the
at
same person.
at least once, if not twice.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, one of my sources, I believe, said twice. One source said once.
yeah. So I know one of the only source that I saw that mentioned him being shot in the side said it was once. So regardless of whether it was one time or two times, and you leave it in, it's still going to be painful. I don't care. It presses on nerves. It does all sorts of things.
I would imagine.
I know family
in the muscles as the muscle moves around it.
Family member who was blown up by a mortar and
still had shrapnel.
50 years later, and at one point had to have a piece of shrapnel removed from their ankle. And when they opened, when they opened him up, they found that there was still blades of grass around the piece of shrapnel. You got to figure they were trying to get him off the battlefield and into a med unit as quick as they could. So they just zip, sewed it up, and off they went. Get out of my head. King, show me a Coke. Having seen firsthand what that individual went through, I can only imagine what having two bullets or even one bullet, did it bounce off ribs? Did it press on organs? Did it deteriorate muscle? I mean, there's a number.
Did it shatter into?
Yeah, did it shatter bone, which caused, because back then they wouldn't have plucked out. I don't know that they could have plucked out if it had shattered the bone of a rib or something.
And did the
folks? I guess the point I'm making is I'm left with more questions after studying this than I was.
Well, at least about the injuries.
About the injuries, yeah. I'm left with a lot of questions that I haven't been able to find the answers for. But I commend him for being able, even with his addictions, even with the severe pain issues that he had, to be able to accomplish the things that he did accomplish. So that's kind of my take on things. I actually am very fond of studying things about the Old West and the Indian Wars and that kind of thing. But I know that we are trying to cover a much broader. We don't want to get hyper focused on one period of history. But I think what I think would be interesting. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm sure there were some out there, and this would be up your alley. I know you'd be women gunslingers.
Gunslingers?
Women gunslingers.
Ah.
Female gunslingers. Because I'm sure there were some. Just like there were female pirates.
Okay.
So we're going to do, we may do that one after we do the Wisconsin and the Virginia. If that's something that you and the audience would be interested in, let us know down in the comments. If female gunslingers, I know that there were gamblers, because She Who Will Remain Nameless, when we did our show, we did discuss one female gambler. So I know there were female gamblers, and that particular woman, I believe, carried a Derringer. To to the tables in case somebody tried to swindle her. I don't remember her name at the moment, but I do remember that she did carry a side piece. Do you have anything else before we close?
Well, you just brought that
Hmm?
up.
Do what?
You just brought that up.
Yeah.
I don't want to know female gangsters.
We can look into that. Good as always. Hope all y'all have a great evening. You know what? I would absolutely love to do that. I like Mac's suggestion.
Do a trivia next one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A U.S. history trivia night. You know what? I like that idea, Mac.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Good on you, Mac. Good on you. And I mean that sincerely. I have a fondness for Mac because he is such a big supporter of the channel.
Forgive me, I'm going to sneeze.
I know I've been
I'm
getting.
sorry, I should have warned you all. I don't just sneeze once unless I'm sick.
I know that Mac loves when I go out and shoot and make those videos because he likes to see the photography, and I've been a little behind on that. So if you have any suggestions, Mac, for that, let me know, and I will see what I can do. I would love to go. I don't even know if they've got them out there anymore. We need to go to Pungo at some point. They've got the World War II plane museum in Pungo now, and I believe that's what it is. My family member that gets mentioned almost every show, which I'm not going to say who it is. Y'all already know. Can tell me the actual name a little bit later, I'm sure. But yeah, there is definitely. Yeah, I would love to maybe shoot some pictures there, and maybe even discuss some of those as we go along. So yeah. Well, gang, it's been real. I'm left with more questions than answers.
On certain aspects.
In certain aspects. But I have enjoyed it. Mac has given us a fantastic idea to have a trivia night. A historical trivia night, I think, would be kind of cool. So until next week, when we discuss the USS Wisconsin, y'all take care of yourselves and each other, and we will see you all. Same bat time, same bat channel next Wednesday. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Good night, gang.
Good night. Love y'all.